Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about my interview process at Microsoft at their headquarters in Redmond, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. Sort of what to expect, a little bit of story time. How was it for me, and what did I enjoy, what didn't I enjoy, and hopefully some tips really at the end of the day, so that when you go and interview with Microsoft, you can be successful. Because I think I was pretty close to the line of passing through, but it was a great experience altogether, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I want to thank our sponsor for this video, Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp. You can check them out at devmountain.com. If you're thinking about starting a web development program or iOS development, maybe UI, UX, quality assurance, Salesforce, Dev Mountain has programs to support all that. Some are online, some are in person, and the in-person ones, and they come with housing with the tuition, so you can get up and go. And they also have after-hour programs, which can help facilitate for those of you that have families or are also need to work during the boot camp experience. Check them out at devmountain.com. So I kept this for my mom for like scrapbooking, but it's my little keepsake from when I was on site with Microsoft. They give you a little badge to let you know it's okay that this degenerate is roaming around here. So let's talk a little bit about the process for interviewing with Microsoft. It's different at every company. It's different probably within every department at Microsoft for every team, because at the end of the day, you're interviewing for a team. At least that was my experience. So I actually didn't apply to Microsoft. Microsoft reached out to me, and they got a hold of my resume from somebody and said, "Hey, check this guy out," basically. And they said, "Yeah, we'd like to." And so that's how I started off with a email from a team lead over at Microsoft, and then they followed up with a Skype call where we discussed a few things, answered some basic technical questions. The process for me moved very quickly. So after that, 2 days later or a day later, it might have been a day later, I had with another team member, a online technical phone screen where I was doing algorithms. I did 2 algorithms in about 30 minutes. One was something pretty basic, like reverse the string or palindrome. The other one was a lot more complex in nature, where it was like to sort order a tracking ID and then remove them from the list without using any built-in array methods and things like that. It's easy enough, but it was much more complex than the first one. And the next day I found out that they were gonna move along with me, which meant that they were gonna fly me out to Redmond, Washington, like 3 days later. In this case, I actually missed an email, so it was a week and 3 days later. But the head of their not the head, but the HR person has to technically invite you, and I had missed that email. So HR reached out to me, and then we set up some travel arrangements. Now, I will say that there's a couple things I learned from a practical standpoint that it doesn't really have anything to do with the business. So one, when they offer to get a rental car, take the rental car. I think that was something I should have done. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was just maybe trying to be nice and inexpensive, but ball out of control. Have no shame. I will ball so hard out of control with the rental car in the future, in future interviews and things like that. But yeah, so feel okay doing that. I know for me that it actually cost me about $200-300 to go interview with Microsoft, because they were going to pay me back for my Ubers to and from the office, to and from Microsoft headquarters, from the hotel that they put me up in. But unfortunately, I was negotiating. By the time I got done with the Microsoft interview, and within the next week, I was negotiating about 3 different contracts, and I flaked on sending them my receipts and all that sort of stuff, And I reached out a month later. I never got a response. So I probably should have just taken the rental car. Moral of the story. But anyhow, yeah. So it was a little crazy for me before I even went to Microsoft. There's a company that I interviewed with who was like, look, man, we went with this other candidate. You were fantastic. There's really nothing wrong with you, but he worked with one of our current employees, and so we chose him because we are more familiar with his code. They chose him because it was one of the employees' friends. I can respect that. It happens. But they're like, come on, if you're ever in Seattle, come on down. Let's have a beer. So I did. So the day before, I go down and I visit this company that rejected me. Kind of a strange situation, but you know what? I don't take it personally. It's business. So I show up to their headquarters, and beautiful office in downtown Seattle. Take one of those fancy $40 Ubers from the airport that I was expecting to get reimbursed for, but hey. And I meet the front end manager. I meet the team that I've sort of shoot the shit for about an hour and a half. Have a beer in their bistro with them. Say, thanks, no worries. And they're like, look, the guy's like, look, man, I think I got some room coming up. Don't worry. I was like, hey, man, I'm in town. I was just stopping by. I appreciate it. Went on my way. So that was how my first part of the trip went. And then I went to the hotel. I ordered some pizza, some takeout to this beautiful hotel. Maybe I'll throw a video up for it, but it is a beautiful hotel. At that point, I just reviewed some, just studied up a little bit, reviewed a few things. Honestly, the process from not knowing I was going to interview with Microsoft to, hey, we need you to interview and come on down, because Microsoft calls, you go most of the time, was like a week and a half to 2 weeks. And so there wasn't really much study time going on, or any time for it, to be honest. So studying in the hotel, wake up a little bit early, iron the clothes, study, do all that stuff. So if you gotta look sharp, right? Show that you care a little bit. It's probably not gonna do too much other than help you, but it's not gonna hurt you. So I wake up in the morning, I go to the Microsoft to interview. So Microsoft, the way that they do their interviews, at least when I was there, is that you're usually interviewing in one of the devs' office spaces or in a conference room, but the majority of the interviews I had were with the devs in their offices. And so they're changing to a much more open workspace, so that may not be the case moving forward. They were sort of like the last offshoot of the contained workspace. But yeah, so the first 5 hours, no, the first three, let's see, I got there I want to say it was from 10 to 6:45 or 6:15 I was interviewing. So it was a long interview process. And I want to say at 1, after I did 3 1-hour interviews. So after I did 3 1-hour interviews, we went to lunch. So in each one of those first 3, I was inside their workspaces, whiteboarding problems out, just nonstop. I would say about each one I did about 3 algorithms. It is just rapid, bam, 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 algorithms. And so some of them, at least the first 2, were the majority of more computer science heavy, like traditional algorithms, like solve this with a binary search, solve this with breadth first search, solve this with this. And those were the ones I didn't do very well on. Those are things that I had memorized when I was in college and that I just forgot. If you're having to solve things, if you're actually having to think about how you sort things and like that in the front end, chances are the back end did a really bad job, and they're just not things that you typically would practice too often. Now, some people may disagree with that statement, and we can have a whole conversation about it, but the point being that on my end, I wasn't prepped enough, even though I knew I had to be. So definitely, if you're looking to work at one of these larger companies, you're going to need to have, there's about 10 to 15 that you're just going to have to know and be familiar with. And I hadn't had the time yet to prep for that. So didn't do too well on those. But the other sort of non-traditional algorithms, as I would call it, hey, we need you, given this scenario, solve this, right? FizzBuzz problems, harder than FizzBuzz, but those sorts of things. Have a you have a two-dimensional array and we want you to solve it like you're swirling in, right? Things like that. So there's problems like that. There is zero problems, and so when Microsoft interviews you, and they've said this about 5 different times. So when they interview you, they don't actually interview you for the role per se. Like I was being interviewed for a front end Angular role, which I would have killed. But they interview you for Microsoft. The reason for that is new projects come up and they need to reshuffle you. So for my front end engineering role that they were looking to fill, I got asked 0 questions about HTML, 0 questions about JavaScript, 0 questions about CSS, 0 questions about unit testing in the front end, 0 questions about UI UX design. So less traditional interviews that way, because what they want to know is like, do you have that foundation, that base, so that when we say, look, the web, we don't do web anymore, that you can go and just jump up and pick up mobile, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for essentially lifelong people. So after the 3 1-hour interviews, it was lunchtime. Sit down for an hour. They bought lunch. The campus is beautiful, right? They have a whole lunch section. And that was probably one of the cooler things about it. And I wish I just shamefully didn't just take pictures. Just take pictures. Because I was in, I want to say it was Studio D, which was, it's one of their studios. But yeah, it was one of the old Xbox studios. So everything around me was like game related. They had a 15-foot sand case of like Halo figures in there, and playing out like a battle, and the floors had just everything from the elevators were covered in game cases, and it was just cool, man. So that was one of the cooler things about being there. So you do the 1-hour lunch. It's pretty interesting to talk to the guy about it. And he had been with Microsoft for about 20 plus years, and most of the people I interviewed with were very knowledgeable. I'd say they probably all had masters in CS. So when I couldn't properly answer a breadth first search, they probably just thought I was an idiot. But it happens. Priorities, I suppose. So after the lunch, I did about 2 more interviews, and then they sent me home. So at that point I didn't feel too good about it. I would say I was batting like 40% where I killed it, and then 60% about 20% where I did all right, and then 40% where I just at most failed. That based off how I did, because most of the time you know how you're doing, right? You know if you tanked something or not, or if you killed it. So at 40% I did really well, 20% and then 40% I did really bad. So I was like, I'm probably not gonna get it. And then they called me back. I just got back to my hotel room, and just accepting my defeat. And they called me back and said, hey, we actually want to interview you for a couple more teams, a couple more people. You mind coming back? So shit, man, yeah. I flew coast to coast to be here. Let's go. So I drive back. I'm mentally exhausted by this time. Highly, highly mentally exhausted, because from those 5 interviews and the 1 lunch interview, I've probably done about 3 algorithms each. So we've done 15 algorithms on the whiteboard, just nonstop. And you don't have a break in between. At least I didn't. There's not like a 5-minute break. Your lunch break's all you get. And, those things get exhausting after a while, right? So, we, that happens. I go back. I do, now it's probably about 4. I do, these, because this other team's interviewing me, they're only half-hour interviews, to 45 minutes. So I'm talking with one of the major managers there. He's in charge of Azure in the cloud, like their application that helps allow DevOps to do it. That's sort of the position that I was interviewing for. Talk about a few things. He basically tells me I need to man up and get out of JavaScript in the conversation, which I thought was kind of funny. And learn a real programming language, as he said. It was funny and somewhat disrespectful, but hey, I'll take it. We're all entitled to opinion. I have a whole channel based off my opinion. Anyhow, so I interview with about 4 of his team members, and it was a cool process. I do much better in the second part of the interview. So in the second part of the interview, I would say I killed it on about 70 to 80%, and the other stuff I just kind of got with 20%. Like, I didn't bomb it. And I was thinking hey man, I might actually redeem myself with this part. But all in all, for the day, I did about 20 algorithms. I did whiteboarded out one potential architecture solution, but the rest was just pure algorithms. And the lunch interview. But it was an experience. I wouldn't say it was enjoyable. It was definitely tiring. 8.5 hours of interviews, give or take. And granted, I interviewed with 2 teams, and I don't know if that was the plan. So I think what happened was they probably were passing on me on the first team, and they were on the fence about it, and they're like, hey, this guy's pretty close. We know this other team that's looking, maybe he'll be a right fit for them. But they end up passing on me, and I go home. I have my other offers I negotiate and all that sort of stuff, and lose out on my $200-300 from Uber that you owe me, Microsoft. You're gonna pay me, Microsoft. No. But yeah, it was interesting. I would say that one thing that I would study is probably just more traditional algorithms. If they said, hey, they reached out to me and say, hey, in 2 months we're going to interview you again, you want to? Yeah, I would guarantee 100% of the time I'd get that job. Just because that's all I would need to study. That's it. I know what I need to study, and I already did. I just didn't put the time in. But it was great, man. It was the coolest part was just being there on the campus. In all honesty, it's always kind of dope when someone flies you out and puts you up in a hotel and things like that. It makes you feel special a little bit. You're like, hey, man, that's pretty cool, man. Because for me, coming from sleeping on the couch, Domino's ain't flying anybody out, putting them up in hotels for any roles. You know what I mean? Like there's no pizza delivery driver service. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's. For me, that's always a pretty cool thing when that happens, and hasn't happened often. But yeah, so that's a little bit of my interview process with Microsoft. Get the rental car, study the traditional algorithms. Oh, and also don't feel pressured to fly back right away. I literally got there the day before and then flew back at midnight on Friday. Like, I got there Thursday, flew back midnight on Friday, and arrived back home at like 8 a.m. It was the dumbest thing I ever did. I would definitely recommend just taking, like, they're cool, man. They already paid for like 4 days for the hotel. So like, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna go and travel across country or be flown out for an interview, take some time to see the city and just enjoy yourself and turn it into sort of a mini vacation, because it's somewhat expected, because they're like, look, man, we get it. You flew out here, and granted we paid for it, but time is money and everything else at the end of the day. So that would be something I would change as well. But it was all right. I don't know that I would do it again, just because it was so long and stressful. I'd be like, look, man, that you had your chance, Microsoft. You done fucked up not hiring me. No, a little truth to that, but we'll leave it at that. But it was interesting all the same. But yeah, so that was what it was like interviewing at Microsoft. I know a lot of you guys were interested. A lot of fun, a lot of stress, really tiring at the end of the day. But hey, good luck to you guys in your interview process, and let me know how it goes for you. As always, guys, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share, all that Good stuff. Check out my courses in the description below. See you guys next time. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out my 100 Algorithm Challenge course. Get you prepped for those technical interviews to make sure you get nice offers. I actually just added some new content to it so you can get prepared for those technical phone screens as well. There's a link in the description to get it for just $9.99.